Guys, I have primarily one more major lesson to go through with this, maybe two, but it's about the visibility settings. Like, how do you actually fill this thing in? How do you change the line weights and stuff like that? So for those of you who know Illustrator, you might not need to pay as much attention to this particular one. And then I'm going to show you how you actually bring in hidden lines and stuff in the background of the image. It's similar, but slightly different. It's what you said. So anyway, the line weights and line types, they can be controlled in this upper left corner. And this is where you have your typical graphic settings for any of your average items. So that would be like lines, circles, or ellipses, rectangles, your typical geometry. So these elements are right now, they are a white color line, right? And they are a weight of 0.709 pixels. That's reading as a pixel. I think it reads as pixels. But the stroke weight is going to be something that's really, really important to understand, because you're going to hear this so much throughout the rest of your career, is the idea of line weight. Line weight is critical for getting a drawing to actually read properly. So this very thin line weight is visible, but it's not overpowering for the image, okay? But if I select all those lines and I change it to like a 5, now it's extremely visible, and it also happens to be extremely overpowering. That's too much. So we are going to, part of this class is to actually learn how to render both a raster and a vector drawing together and get it to read well and clear. And I forget what the other part of my statement was going to be. But so you need to find a balance. And generally speaking, guys, you never want to have more than 3 different line types in a drawing. That's my rule of thumb. We'll get into that more like in the next couple weeks, but as you're exploring, as we're starting to learn this, don't ever introduce more than 3 line weights. And it's usually, for me, my starting point is 0.5, 1, and 2. And if I need to increase or decrease them, I will. So these lines, I'm going to switch to a 1. And now I need to show you how to fill it in. So filling it in is extremely easy. It's called Live Paint or Live Trace. If you go to Object, you can go to Live Paint and do Make. And then you have to do, I forget where the tool actually is on the bars. I just know that it's the hotkey K. You got to write this one down, because I don't know what the tool is actually called for it. Hotkey K. If one of you guys knows it, help me out here. But K. And it creates this little, paint bucket filler. It's probably somewhere over here. Oh, there it is. It's right there. Live Paint Bucket. Hotkey K. All right. So what this is going to do is it's going to take the settings that are in the upper left corner, and then it's going to apply that to the object that you just created. And by object, I mean that you actually created a singular family out of all of these what were once individual lines. So now if I deselect them and I go up to one of the lines and I click it, it's going to select all of them. Similarly, these lines must be in a closed loop in order for them to be filled. So when I was talking to you about the accuracy of your modeling, this is where you save tons of time, is if you're diligent enough with controlling your geometry and you get them to actually sweep and round in a clean way, then all you have to do when you get to this stage is hit K, set your fill color to also be white or black or whatever you want to make it, and then you just click, click, and click, and you filled it in. Now if you don't have clean geometry, that becomes more difficult. You might have to go in, and if there's a small gap somewhere, you have to draw in a little line to close it off. You have to You have to cheat a little bit. Now, you can tell that my scaling isn't perfect, but, you know, we'll get better at that stuff. But, yeah. So at this point, what questions do you have? Not much, right? Just make it a live paint group, hit K, and you're good. Now, one more thing about that is that before I made it a live paint group, okay, so you can select them individually. That's all well and good. If you select all of your objects and you start off by hitting K, this is a cool shortcut. Hit K and see how it says click to make a live paint group. I love this part because all you have to do when you have this geometry selected is click it and it creates the live paint group for you. You don't have to go to object or hit Control Shift X or whatever it was that it was asking you to do. It's all one step with the K tool or live paint bucket tool. Okay, super useful. So this is a fill color. This is your stroke color. That's your stroke weight. This is your stroke type, but don't worry about that yet. And then you just fill, fill, fill. Okay. If there are no questions, I'm going to stop here. I'll give you a little bit of time to explore this. I hope that you can get to this stage, but and then I'm going to probably, you know, in a short while, I'll show you how do you bring in more information, more line work, stuff that's going to, you know, fill out the background of the image and stuff like that. Yes?
Can you do all the same stuff in Photoshop?
Not as cleanly. Theoretically, yes, you could take your DWG lines, but it will rasterize them and it'll turn it into little pixels. So using like the magic wand tool, which might be what you're referring to, the problem is you have to have exactly the right calibration for the resolution of that pixeled line to get it to go to the center of the line and not stop short or go too far. Does that make sense? For those of you who don't know Photoshop as well, that might not make as much sense. I could explain it better if you want. But yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, so let's take a little bit of time to do this. I absolutely would love for you guys to spend this time now doing this. In fact, not just I would love for you to do it, it's a requirement, so do it. But I want to be sure that I can watch you do this the first time and help you out and remind you of what the steps are so you're not spinning your wheels.